What is going on, guys? It is John here for you, and we are currently looking at my 1958 John Deere 430W tractor. Now, you guys, last time you saw this and the first time you guys saw this tractor, we were driving it home. I was driving home, actually, and I got it running for the first time. This thing sat for 15 years, and got it running and drove it home. And today what we're going to do is go ahead and look over this thing in good detail, tell you the history on it, and why I picked up this little project, and all that cool stuff. So let's get right into it. Alrighty guys, so the specs on this tractor, for those of you that are not familiar with the more classic John Deeres, the two-cylinder John Deeres, also kind of known as putt-putts because they go putt-putt-putt. This is, like I said, it's 1958. This is a John Deere 430 with the W letter designation. The W stands for row crop utility, and there's different versions of the 430. You had the tricycle front end. This has the wide front end with the adjustable front axle. You had a tricycle front end. You had a high crop variation. You had the standard variation. You had the row crop, which is this one here. And there were some others that I'm not 100% certain on. So I just know that this one particularly is the 430W. It has a two-cylinder John Deere engine. It's a pretty tiny little engine, really. It's just that right there. You can see the two spark plugs, cylinder head, valve cover, down to the oil pan. And this particular engine puts out about 30 horsepower at the PTO. This tractor does have what's known as a live PTO, meaning that it's separate from the motion of the tractor. So you come back here from the engine. This is the original radiator. This tractor does not have power steering. It is manual steering. The steering is very sloppy, as you could see from the driving video that you guys saw, the first video. And when I bought this tractor, it came with a whole box of steering parts to rebuild the worm gear and stuff up on top of here. So I'll be going through that at some point. So come back, you have the engine, you got your clutch and your drive shaft there. It goes through this tube. Back to your trans. This tractor has the 5-speed transmission with reverse. And the way it works is kind of odd. But the way the transmission works is it's 1, 2, back is 3, 4 is up, and then back middle is 5. Then all the way over and down is reverse. So it's a little gummy right now because it's cold outside. It's only about 35 degrees out. And unfortunately, in the current state, I'm having to keep this thing outside under a tarp. But it's keeping it dry and kind of keeping it out of the elements, so it's working pretty good for it right now. It won't be doing that for very long, a few years. This thing has a 10-gallon fuel tank, if I remember correctly. The big thing I had to do with this tractor is clean out the fuel system. The fuel system in this tractor was pretty jacked up, actually, because, like I said, it sat about 14 or 15 years, and I had to really do some work to get this fuel tank cleaned out. So if you guys are cleaning out a rusty fuel tank, I didn't get any footage on it, but I ended up using vinegar to dissolve the rust, and kerosene at first to help break up the varnish. And then finally, what really helped break up the varnish was a mixture of, I think I put 3/4 of a cup of Dawn dish soap and a gallon of ammonia. And that actually really helped to break up the varnish, and I was able to get chunks out. And then the last thing I did to rinse the tank out was I used just not white vinegar, excuse me. I used isopropyl alcohol, about a gallon of isopropyl alcohol, and really vigorously sloshed it around. That soaked up any moisture or whatever that was still in the tank. Dumped that out, and I'm still getting some stuff out You know, when I first put a couple gallons through it, it got some trash out of it. But I ran about 2 tanks full through this thing so far since I've owned it, between driving it home and just running it. And already the tank is miraculously better. It's not perfect, but it is a lot better than what it started with. So coming back here, you've got your transmission. This right here is your lever for your 3-point hitch. This has what's known as the touch-o-matic controls. There's supposed to be a second one here. I'm not entirely sure why there's not a second one. I have a reproduction manual for this tractor, and it shows a second one, but I'm not sure why this particular tractor doesn't have one. Over here, you've got your brakes, left and right, accordingly, and then you guys can see this lever right there. What that is when you push the brake in, you see it moves that little pan right there, and then you pull this up, and it locks your parking brake. So you have one on this side, and then one on the other side. You can probably see it for the right and left parking brakes, which the brakes actually work surprisingly well on this tractor. Coming around back here, it's a little tight in the shop, but the tractor does fit. Looking at the wheels, you guys can see these guys has these bars on there, and the rods. These are the power adjust wheels. So what you can do is loosen these stops, put the tractor in first gear, and actually adjust the width of the wheels without having to actually really unbolt anything. It uses the power of the engine and the transmission to turn the wheels. It's a pretty neat thing. These tires in the back, this is one reason I was not at all nervous of buying this tractor, is these tires are brand new. They are, 14, 15 years old, but there's not a single lick of dry rot in these tires. And the rims, while rusty, they are solid. So for the fact that the rear tires and wheels are solid, that was a huge plus to being able to buy this tractor. Now, back here, the 3-point Hitch Pto. Has just a regular old 3-point hitch on it. There's your PTO shaft. Now, as long as the clutch is on, sorry, I'm trying to think of the right words. As long as the clutch is not depressed, is what I'm looking for, the PTO is spinning. Now, you can be in neutral and have it spinning, or you can be in gear and have it spinning. There's no real PTO switch that I know of. Now, if you guys know about these tractors and you know if there is a certain lever or something, which I'll show you that in a little bit here, what I think it might be, I don't know if this can turn on or off via a lever to disconnect it. I'm not sure. All I know is when you push the clutch in, it stops turning. So that's kind of a little hazard in my mind, because it'd be nice to turn the PTO off if you're going down the road or whatever, but I always just disconnect the PTO shaft if I have a bush hog behind it or whatever. The 3-point hitch here, you guys probably can notice I'm missing a drawbar, and my drawbar housing is actually pretty mangled. I ordered a new drawbar and a used but in good condition drawbar housing there, the brace and everything, and it goes down alongside all this over here. You guys can see the pan there. So I ordered all that new from a New Paris tractor, actually, and if you guys haven't heard of them, look them up. Looking for anything old, they really can work with you. And it was very reasonably priced. So I ordered a new one of those. I'll get that changed out at some point. The 3-point works well. There are some fluid leaks. You guys can probably see it's a little damp over here. I topped the system off before I drove the tractor home because the 3-point wouldn't work at all when I was on my way. When I first started, the 3-point wouldn't work at all when I was first getting the tractor running, because there was hardly any fluid in there. But once I filled it up with some fluid, it works fine. It just has some leaks I need to address. This thing has new A&I fenders on it. A&I, if you guys are not aware, is a subsidy of John Deere. It's aftermarket parts for all makes and parts for older things, and some cheaper alternatives to actual John Deere OE parts, but they're still made just as well. So the previous owner purchased a couple fenders from A&I and installed them on this tractor, and they're brand new. I mean, they're primed, ready to go. A little bit of surface rust, as you guys can see, but the fenders are solid. They're ready for paint, so that's a good thing. This tractor has not gotten a bath simply because it's cold out, and I just haven't gotten the hose out or anything to wash it. I've simply been running the tractor here and there. So it has a new aftermarket seat on there. if you guys, again, if you know about these tractors, let me know. Is this thing supposed to have a yellow seat or a black seat from the factory? Because I thought it was a yellow, but I'm not 100% certain. I'll have to look a little bit more into that. Coming around here, the other wheel looks just as good as the right side. Okay, let's see if we can go to the other side of the engine, show you guys the fuel system and the carburetor. Okay, on the other side of the tractor now. This tractor is straight piped, as you guys could definitely hear in the driving home video. And I'm going to keep it that way. I really kind of like the sound of it straight piped. And it will not stay with this pipe. I'm going to end up putting a chrome stack on it with a chrome flapper once this thing is all pretty and nice looking. But I'm going to keep it straight piped. I don't mind wearing ear protection when I'm running this thing. I'm not sure if this is gas. I think it's just water, because the tank really doesn't leak. And I don't smell gas, so I'm pretty sure it's not gas. So here's the back to the engine. Got your exhaust manifold and intake manifold. Has a Marvel carburetor. Pretty sure it's an updraft carburetor. I did go through it. It is a little leaky here and there. It's leaking out of the bottom right here. That's the load adjustment screw, that little L-shaped thing. And then up top here, that clean screw, that's the idle adjustment screw. So you guys can see it's dripping just a hair. Nothing serious to write home about. The tractor runs great, but I'm going to have to address, how to seal that up properly. And it's a little seepy around the gasket there. I'll have to make sure the screws are tight, because like I said, I did go into it, so if I didn't tighten them down all the way, maybe that's why it's doing that. This thing does have some oil leaks. You can see it's a little damp there, probably around the valve cover gasket. I don't know, the head gasket, this thing runs great, so I think the head gasket is okay, but it's just a little damp all through there. This has an oil bath air filter. If you guys have never seen one of those before, haven't been around old equipment like this, I'll go ahead and unscrew it and remove it. I do need to clean this filter out. So this is an oil bath air filter. And what it does is it pulls air from up in that stack there, down through here, makes a sharp U-turn, causing the debris to stay stuck in the oil, then back up and into the air intake for the carburetor. So they want you to clean out this filter about every 10 hours, they say. This tractor doesn't have an hour meter on it. I'm going to get to the instruments here in just a second. But that's something I'm going to clean out here pretty soon. Here is the starter and the fuel filter. This has a glass little fuel gascolator on it type thing. And there's a screen up in the top that filters out any debris. Fuel comes out of the tank down into that glass bowl. The rust and dirt falls into the bottom of the glass bowl, and the fuel gets pulled up through the screen and then to the fuel line down to the carburetor. It was very nice when I was first running this tractor, because I had to clean this thing out a lot, but it was nice to not have to replace a paper fuel filter every time. This tractor has been converted to 12 volts. I'm sure you guys saw the alternator right over there. So that was a very nice thing. That's something I don't have to do, and it starts up and runs excellent. The spark is very, very good. I did have to clean the points, and I replaced the condenser. The problem with the tractor, why it wasn't getting spark when I first got it running, is that there was the place where the rotor button and the cap touch, the graphite up there was wore off of the cap, so it wasn't able to jump that to the rotor button to then create spark. So I replaced the cap and spark plugs, replaced the rotor, cleaned the points, put a new condenser in it, and she fired right up. Oh, and I replaced the coil as well. I put a 12 volt coil on there instead of using the old 6 volt coil, which was on here, and again, runs great. Here's the other side of the tractor. Here's that lever I was talking about. I don't really know what this is for. The book says something to do with the power shaft, and what they mean by power shaft is the PTO, power takeoff shaft. I'm not sure what this lever does. I haven't noticed a big difference in anything, when you move it back and forth. So again, if you guys know, please let me know. I'd love to hear what exactly that lever does. Anyway guys, so that's an overview of my 1958 John Deere 430W. And still got the serial plate on it, made in USA. This was up at the Des Moines Works, I believe, is where this tractor was made. Don't quote me on that, I'm not 100% certain, but I believe that's the factory where this came from back in the day. And what I'm planning on doing to it today, guys, is you can see there's a lot of grease fittings on the steering, some on the 3-point hitch, on the PTO shaft, the front axle, stuff like that. So I'm going to go through and grease this tractor. I even need to go in and grease like the throwout bearing there in the clutch. So I'm going to get all that cleaned out. I'm going to go ahead and service that air filter and get that having fresh oil in it. And I have a leak from my dipstick tube, as you guys can see. It's the gasket there on the cap. So I need to order one of those. But I'm going to change the oil in this thing. So the oil is obviously there. It's just 30 weight that I'm going to run. And then the oil filter is not a screw-on. It's a cartridge type. And it goes in that green bottle right there. So I'm going to go ahead and get that changed out and take you guys with me. We'll see what the oil looks like this coming out of this thing after 15 years. And this is the oil that I drove it home on because it looked perfectly fine. I had great oil pressure the whole time, so I wasn't too concerned with it. But we'll go ahead and get that changed and go from there.